everybody, so we've got an exciting review today because we're talking about the latest film in the Predator franchise, Prey. It's certainly never boring to be a fan of the Predator franchise. After that last film, The Predator was kind of a disaster critically and with audiences. I wasn't really sure the direction here we were going to take the brand, but it was fascinating to me that with Prey, we are going to have a prequel of sorts, our first story set in the past. Set in the early 1700s, we follow Naru, a skilled Comanche warrior that fights to protect her tribe against one of the first highly evolved predators to land on Earth. With the fact that the last film in the franchise didn't really deliver whatsoever, there was going to be some skepticism going in, especially due to the fact that this is dropping on streaming, straight to streaming, Hulu and Disney Plus, depending on where you live, and I'm really not a big fan of that. I really feel like this did warrant a theatrical release, because after watching the film, it does warrant one. I think this is a masterful return to form for the Predator franchise as a whole. In more recent entries, we have seen the Predator franchise go a bit over the top with the stories it tries to tell, so it is a refreshing change of pace here with Prey and the way that Dan Trachtenberg tells his story, taking things a bit back to basics on what makes a Predator film so enticing. A simple, thrilling Predator vs. Prey encounter that makes the most of the concept with a Predator that causes tons of vicious and bloody carnage. All of the action in Prey is probably one of the film's biggest selling points, as each and every sequence is intense, well shot, and full of variety in their execution. There are certain scenes in this film that I was taken aback by just because of how amazing they were. Some of the biggest highlights for me is when the Predator is facing off against Comanche warriors and these French soldiers or pirates. I'm not really sure which they are. I just know that they're French people. Each and every one of these Predator action scenes, they're awesome. Arguably some of the best Predator action in the entire franchise. Unlike many of the sequels that followed Predator, Prey is able to ooze a lot of that tension and suspense that's been severely lacking in these last couple of Predator films, and able to keep you on your toes about just where exactly the Predator is at all times. And since these characters have no idea what they're dealing with, you do feel that sense of paranoia all throughout the film along with the characters. Plus, there's also the fact that this is set in the 1700s, so they don't really have any sort of technology to deal with the Predator. So that's another fun spin on the franchise that we really haven't seen before. While it is epic to see the Predator face off against all these different people, and that's why people pay to see these types of movies, I was glad to see that not all of the action in this film was relegated to just the Predator. There were some great action sequences that involved Naru as well, our lead. Amber Midthunder is not an actress that I was familiar with going into the film, but after this starring role in Prey, I hope this is a catapult to bigger and better roles after this, because I thought that she was fantastic. She truly commands the screen in every scene that she's in, and has such a compelling personal journey that's rooted in her Comanche roots, wanting to prove to everyone around her that she too is capable of being a hunter, which is a plot that is very easy to root for, and at the same time feel bad for, because her whole journey to try and prove herself is to fight a predator, which I probably, out of all the things you could fight out there in the world to prove your worthiness, I think the Predator is up there when it comes to one of the worst possible things you could have as an adversary. I mean, sure, this Predator doesn't have the same bells and whistles as the other Predators we've seen in the more current day franchise films, but he still has a lot of really cool gadgets and the fact that he is huge. Speaking more on the Predator in Prey, this Predator in this film, he's ferocious. He'll take on pretty much anything that's in his way, whether it be humans, animals, it doesn't really matter. He's viciously hunting anything that's in his path. There are quite a lot of animal deaths in this film, so if you're someone that is not a big fan of seeing animals killed on screen, maybe don't watch this film. But this Predator is extremely intimidating anytime he appears on screen, since a lot of these characters don't stand a great chance at survival, even if they do try to put up a good fight. Pretty much in every single Predator film in the franchise, you gotta have new Predators that look different. And the one in here, I think it is very strikingly unique. It offers an intriguing look into what the Predators looked like 300 years before we first saw them in the original Predator film. And I guess going off of what lore you want to believe from the Predator and all that stuff, maybe that's why it looks so different 300 something years ago. Since it's a Predator that hasn't been genetically modifying himself with all these other strands of DNA, I imagine. I do genuinely try to block out a lot of the lore stuff that was involved in the Predator, but nevertheless, we're talking about Prey. One of the coolest parts of the film to me is how we actually get to see the Predator. Obviously, he has the ability to cloak all throughout the film. That's like a staple of every Predator in every film so far. But it's the way that we gradually get to see him throughout the film until we get the big reveal later on. As he starts out invisible, but we get glimpses of different pieces of his body being uncloaked as he's hunting until you get that big reveal of what the Predator does does look like once he deems these people worthy of the hunt. It feels very reminiscent to the original film, where the Predator was very much cloaked for a large portion of the film until we got towards that final act. Outside of the original film where Arnold takes on the Predator, I think this is probably my favorite third act out of all the films in the franchise. Not only just because it's so great and action-packed, and the action itself is pretty well done, well directed. Dan Trachtenberg is such a great director. I wish he would do more films. But it's such a fulfilling story that you are really actively rooting for her to defeat this Predator by any means necessary after everything that's transpired on this journey. It certainly takes a lot of heart and tenacity for someone with such limited resources to take on a Predator who is absolutely massive and has weaponry and all these other factors in his favor. Much like I said before, I do wish this film was released theatrically so I could see this on the big screen, because I do think the visuals of Prey do warrant it. I think the cinematography in the film is stunning. Visually, I think this is the best the franchise has ever looked. Just great grand scope and scale as Naru is traveling across such breathtaking places in the wilderness with her dog companion, who I haven't mentioned much, but they are the real MVP. I don't remember if it's a male dog or a female dog, but nevertheless, that dog is awesome whenever it does share the screen with Naru. While I did enjoy the journey that we went on with Naru and her dog, I do wish that there were a bit more memorable characters in the cast, because it isn't like Predator where there are so many other iconic characters. This one, it pretty much is just Naru, and I wish that we had other characters to kind of have some fun dialogue with. The only one that kind of gets some more screen time really is her brother, who isn't really as much really involved either. A lot of these characters are very disposable. One of them does say an iconic line from the original film, though. I won't give away which line it is, but I think you have an idea of what it could be. You know, it's not going to be "get to the chopper." That would be hilarious because the film is set in the 1700s. It's one of the other popular lines from the first film. And while the film's runtime is relatively short, clocking in at around an hour and 39 minutes or so, I do think it takes a little bit too long to get the plot going, because it's a very slow first act of the film, but I do think it picks up so much in the middle that it's really entertaining till the very end. Other than that, I think that Prey is an excellent breath of fresh air for this franchise that was truly needed at this point. What this film may lack in story is more than made up for by the intense action and an extremely compelling lead that culminates in an ultimate badass showdown for the finale. And there's also some other cool connections to the other Predator films, which I think you're going to have a lot of fun with if you're a lifelong fan of the Predator franchise. I just wish this was in theaters. I really hope that they have some sort of maybe like limited theatrical release or something, because I do think it does warrant it. It's a shame that we finally get another great Predator film and it's relegated to streaming services, whether it be Hulu, Disney Plus. But I do recommend checking it out. Whichever platform you use, whichever you're from, it's going to be on Hulu or Disney Plus tomorrow. So I would love to know your thoughts down below. What do you think of Prey? Did you like the film? Dislike the film? I would say, where would you rank this among all the other films in the Predator franchise? But I may have a ranking going up in the near future where we're going to talk more in depth about the franchise as a whole, because I did a ranking for the last film when the Predator came out. So stay tuned for a new ranking. If I do make one, you'll probably see it probably in the outro if you want to check that out afterwards. Haven't decided yet though, but I do love this film a lot either way. Either way, make sure you share your thoughts down below. It's part fun to have a conversation with you guys in the comments section. Also, thank you guys so much for the review. I really appreciate that. Be sure to like a video. Also, subscribe to the channel so you're up to date reviews, reactions, unboxings, and more. Next time, I'll see you guys later.